3 spine-chilling true horror stories of sinister figures lurking outside revealed secrets await. Sarah didn't believe in ghosts or nightmares lurking outside her window. Not until she began to see the shadows. Each night, they deepened against her walls, forming shapes that twisted into something primordial. They seemed to beckon, as she held her breath and peered into the inky darkness, clutching her heart as it raced. The sound of children's laughter rang in her ears, but it was different, harmonized, chilling, as if they were whispering secrets only they could understand. At first, it was an innocent footstep outside, a branch scratching against the windowpane. It sent her heart leaping, but she shook it off as nothing. Yet eerie footprints began to appear on her perfectly manicured lawn, flanking the path to her porch. Sarah's 7-year-old son, Jacob, and his 5-year-old sister, Lily, spoke about a towering figure they called Mr. Owen. He could know all their secrets, they said, laughter escaping from their lips. The innocence of their voices turned Sarah's unease into a full-blown nightmare. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sarah clutched the counter at the diner, her mind too jumbled to focus. She felt the prickle of cold sweat at her back. Living alone with her children had forced her into a routine that felt like a fragile card house, but as shadows danced in the corners of her vision, her heart sank. Every night, she woke to the sound of hushed giggles vibrating through the thin walls. Jacob and Lily, sharing secrets with Mr. Owen, their laughter swirling in the chilly night air. She kept herself up, patrolling the backyard like a guardian haze, eyes straining at the edge of the trees. The neighborhood, once her sanctuary, now felt suffocating, its edges blurred with ominous tales whispered behind closed doors. As she conversed with her neighbors, asking them if they too had noticed Mr. Owen's creeping presence, their faces turned pale. They exchanged fearful glances, abruptly changing the subject. The tales of a resident who disappeared, last seen at the wood's edge, haunted each silence. Shivers racked her body. Was Mr. Owen just a figment of her children's imaginations? Or something darker, lurking just outside their lives? One night, when she ventured close to her children's bedroom door, she felt a tremor ripple through her spine. Their laughter was now a low murmur, a strange incantation performed for a shadow just beyond her reach. She opened the door, and the sight before her nearly stopped her heart. The children, eyes gleaming with fervor, were shrouded in darkness, whispering to nothing at all. "Mommy!" Jacob suddenly wailed, as though Mr. Owen had sensed her trespass. They sprang from their beds, drawn towards the night like moths to a flame. Sarah lunged, grasping at them, but the question echoed in her ear as everything fell silent, "Don't you want them to be happy?" The terror curled in her gut like a snake preparing to strike. Would she lose them to the shadows forever? As the bittersweet scent of childhood innocence mingled with dread, she realized the horrifying truth: the real monster may not be just outside, hidden in the dark, but housed within the very home she fought so desperately to protect. Sarah's heart raced, each beat echoing the chilling dread that enveloped her home. She caught her breath. The air felt dense, heavy with secrets and unspoken fears. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees like a warning. She scanned the dim hallway, her children's laughter now just a distant memory. They had gone quiet, and the silence was more terrifying than their giggles. "Jacob? Lily?" She called, her voice trembling. She took a cautious step into the room, the wooden floor creaking. Each sound felt amplified against the oppressive darkness. Shadows stretched along the walls, contorting like twisted fingers eager to reach her. They weren't in their beds. Panic gripped her. She rushed through the house, searching every corner, every closet. Nothing. Just quiet, oppressive and thick. She stumbled down to the backyard, the moonlight slicing through the trees, illuminating patches that appeared eerily inviting. "Where are you?" she shouted, her voice cracking. She felt foolish and frightened, standing in the open, vulnerable. But instinct pulled her toward the treeline, the place where the laughter had always seemed to originate. Upon stepping into the shadows, a sense of despair settled harshly in her gut. The trees loomed like giants, and the dense blackness between them felt like a backdrop for some sinister play. Suddenly, she heard it, a whispering chant, rhythmic, like an incantation threading its way through the air. "Join us, Mommy." The words sent a jolt through her. They were unmistakably Jacob and Lily. She bolted deeper, fear propelling her forward. In that moment, the figure of Mr. Owen flickered in her mind, tall, shadowy, with eyes that glinted like polished stones, ready to absorb her children's souls. Bursting into a clearing, she found her children. They stood hand in hand, eyes glazed, gazing into the inky depths that swallowed the space beyond them. Thick fog curled around their feet, tendrils creeping forward, coaxing them closer to whatever lay within the dark embrace. "Mommy." They turned to her, their faces lit with an ethereal glow, their innocence replaced by something otherworldly. "We're playing with Mr. Owen," Jacob proclaimed dreamily, as if in a blur. "Come play with us." Lily's voice was sweet and syrupy, yet it sunk like ice into Sarah's heart. "No!" Sarah screamed, rushing toward them, her arms outstretched. The fog thickened, swirling around her legs, trying to tether her to the ground. She planted her feet firm, mustering all the resolve left within her. Just then, the shadows shifted, revealing a grotesque figure standing behind her children. It wore a smile that froze the moment, a grin far too wide, eyes glinting with malice and allure. "Why don't you join them? It's so easy to forget your worries within the fog," it rasped, voice whispering through the air like poison. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. She wanted to scream, to pull her kids away, but the insidious pull of Mr. Owen's presence held her back as if a thick rope coiled around her heart. As the figure took a step closer, Sarah felt the ground rumble. Her children's laughter broke the silence again, but it sounded hollow, like an echo from somewhere far away. Something deep within her urged her to save them. But at what cost? "Please, just stand back," she shouted, desperate. The shadows twisted, a storm brewing in their depths as Mr. Owen's chilling voice slithered into her mind. "You can't protect them from me, Sarah. They belong to me now." Terror surged through her veins, freezing her breath. What was she willing to sacrifice to reclaim her children? And would that cost mean losing herself? As the darkness encroached, Sarah felt the veil of night pressing in, ready to snuff out the last light of hope. She dashed forward, fueled by fear and maternal instinct, determined to pull them from the clutches of something ancient and hungry. But as she reached for them, the world around her shattered like glass, and darkness closed in. What awaited them in the void? Would she manage to save her children from the sinister grasp of Mr. Owen, or would they vanish into the echoes forever? Sarah felt herself falling, the plunge into blackness pulling her deeper into a void that seemed infinite. The coldness enveloped her, creeping into her bones. She reached out, heart racing, searching for any trace of Jacob and Lily. Her fingers grazed nothing but air, panic swelling like a tide. The absence of her children's warmth was a gaping wound. Shouts turned to whispers, and the air thickened with an unbearable pressure, pushing down on her chest. "Jacob! Lily!" she cried, but her voice dissolved into nothingness, swallowed by the darkness surrounding her. Suddenly, a flicker. The space around her illuminated in a ghostly haze. She saw them, her children, standing still, their faces now pallid, expressions frozen in a chaotic mix of joy and terror. They were locked in a trance, eyes wide and vacant, as if they were beyond the grasp of reality. "Mommy!" they chorused, though their voices were echoes fading into sorrow. The fog coiled around them like living chains. Sarah lunged forward, desperation sparking every nerve in her body. Hold on to me. I'm here. She grasped their hands, feeling the frigidness seep into her skin. The shadows writhed, pulsing with life, as if feeding off her dread. Mommy, play. They sang in unison, and in that moment, a shriek tore through the air, a sound so raw and visceral that it shook her to her core. Fear twisted in her gut, and she pulled her children closer. No! She screamed, battling against an unseen force pulling them apart. A figure loomed above, grotesquely elongated, the laughter mocking and twisted. You'll never have them, Sarah. It slithered through the fog, its posture unnaturally fluid, distorting and reforming like smoke. They belong to the shadows now. Get away from them. She bellowed, feeling the edges of her sanity fraying. Rage surged like a wildfire, burning brighter than her fear. She dared to meet its gaze, recognizing the reflection of all her failures in those hollow eyes. This was a monster made of her insecurities and doubts. The fog dissipated slightly, revealing a flicker of the world around them. It was wrong, a mix of distortion and nightmarish beauty. Trees bent in unnatural angles, their branches reaching out like skeletal hands. The ground pulsed, alive with dark energy, the earth itself seemed to drain all light. Mommy, it's fun. Lily cooed, her voice tainted with a haunting echo. Sarah felt sick. The joy in her daughter's voice twisted into something sinister. No. This isn't you. Panic clawed at her throat. As she yanked her children closer, the fog thickened like a wall, pressing in, suffocating. In that moment, she made a choice. If I have to, I'll burn this place to the ground. She swore, channeling every ounce of fury into her heart. The shadows wavered, momentarily uncertain of her newfound power. Join us, Sarah, the figure whispered, its smile stretching unnaturally wide. You can't fight what you truly are. But something ignited within her, the purest love, fierce and relentless. She began to chant, words she had whispered to them through countless bedtime stories. I am their mother. I will protect them. With each syllable, light crackled around her, illuminating the darkness. The shadows recoiled, screeching in madness. She felt warmth bloom in her chest, a surge of energy radiating from her love. Let them go. She commanded, the power breaking through despair. The world shuddered around them, reality warping and bending as the figure's laughter transformed into screams. Sarah tightened her grip on Jacob and Lily, her voice rising above the chaos, but just as she felt hope dawning, the ground beneath her shifted violently. She stumbled backward, the chilling grip of despair reared again, and the shadows fought back, pulling at her children. Into the darkness they fell, her heart lurching in horror, as the world splintered. Could she hold on to them, or was she destined to lose everything? What price would she pay to save their souls from the clutches of Mr. Owen, and was the power she unleashed still her own? The ground screamed as the darkness tore apart, swirling with madness. Sarah stumbled, her heart racing, tethered by the frail connection she had with Jacob and Lily. She strained against the pull, desperate not to let them go, while the world quaked around them. Shadows writhed like serpents, hungry and merciless, each one whispering her name, the name of her failures, the moments she wished she could erase. Mommy! The cry sliced through the chaos, a thread of hope that coursed through the storm of despair. She looked into her children's faces, their wide eyes reflecting fear and trust. Hold on! She shouted, clenching her teeth, fighting to keep the shadows at bay. As she drew their hands closer, she felt the heat of her own strength burning bright. The shadows recoiled, their malevolent laughter turning to hisses of rage. For a moment, she thought she could win. We beat them together. She cried, channeling every ounce of love into her voice. But just then, the figure surged, a grotesque silhouette that towered above them, limbs stretching impossibly. You think you can defy us? It taunted, its voice slithering through the air, slick and cold. This is not your realm. They are not yours to keep. Sarah squeezed her children's hands tighter, a surge of fury igniting her. "You have no power here," she roared, but the shadows only laughed, a cacophony of mockery that echoed in her ears, resonating with every doubt she ever harbored. Suddenly, the ground beneath her began to fracture, dark veins pulsing like a monstrous heart, beating in time with her rising panic. It was a call to surrender, an invitation to despair. She felt the grip on her children weaken, felt the darkness snaking around her, corrupting, binding. "Mommy, it's dark," Jacob whimpered, innocence bleeding into fear. The sweetness of his voice tore at her heart, and in that moment, panic exploded into raw terror. "Let them go!" Sarah screamed, her body trembling as she began to chant again, her voice rising, fueled by desperation. "I am their mother. I will protect them." The words danced into the ether, shimmering with defiance. The shadows recoiled, twisting as if struck by a painful truth, but the figure merely laughed, a harsh, grating sound that made her want to shrivel. "You think words can save you?" it taunted. "Power dwells in surrender, in accepting the dark." "No!" she gasped, her breath coming short and fast. The ground lurched, pulling them deeper, urging her to yield. The cold swept over her like a wave, gripping her throat with icy fingers. She struggled against the force, clenching her teeth as she tried to fill her heart with memories, reflections of laughter, summer days, safety, and it worked, if only for a moment. Light began to flicker around her, growing from a spark into a blazing shield. She tugged Jacob and Lily closer, their warmth igniting her resolve. "We are more powerful than you," she declared, her voice cracking but fierce, but then the shadows struck back, crashing against her like a wave. The light flickered dangerously. Her heart sank, realizing that the shadows were real, tangible nightmares, feeding off her very fear, the dread that had secreted itself deep inside her. "No!" she gasped again, her grip slipping. Jacob's hand began to dissolve, the warmth fading as darkness leached into him. "Lily, hold on." Tears streamed down her face, strangled cries clawing at her vocal cords as she pulled with everything she was. But the shadows had teeth now, gnashing and clawing, dragging her children farther away. In an instant, the landscape twisted again, opening like a maw ready to swallow her soul. A hollow voice beckoned her deeper. "Join us, Sarah. Join the dark. This is where you truly belong." With a renewed spark of defiance, Sarah roared back, "No. I choose light." But the words felt weak, a futile gasp against the abyss that surrounded her. And then she saw it, a flicker beneath the void, a glimmer that pulled at her like a lifeline. It was a memory, vivid and tangible, a moment from a lifetime ago, when the world felt safe and bright. Would it be enough to save them, or would it drag them all into shadows together? As the darkness reached for her again, Sarah had one last choice to make. Would she dive back into the light, risking everything, or would she surrender, letting the shadows pull her into their cold embrace? The ground shook, and her heart thundered. She had to decide before it was too late. Sarah felt the warmth of her children slipping away, a terrifying chill clawing at her heart. Every instinct screamed at her to hold on, to fight against the chilling darkness threatening to consume them whole. But doubt amorphously wove through her thoughts. Could she really protect them? "Mommy." Lily's voice trembled, laced with panic that echoed in the chaos. Sarah's resolve sharpened, but the laughter of the figure loomed heavily, warping her confidence. Shadows twirled around them in baleful delight, as if delighted by the desperation that clutched at her throat. The memory flickered, vibrant and ideal, a sunlit park, children's laughter mingling with the rustling leaves. "We can get back there," she screamed at the void, grappling at the light she could only see in her mind. The shadows howled in fury, their fangs gleaming. "Mommy, it's hurting." Jacob's voice cracked, a mere whisper now, lost against the rising tide of darkness. She felt the distance stretching painfully, each inch like a dagger through her chest. "No. We're stronger," she shouted, but with every word, the grip of the void tightened, hungry for surrender. The shadows clung to Jacob, sinking deeper into him, his laughter swallowed whole. A surge of energy crackled at her fingertips. The light pulsed, flickering brilliantly, but the shadows lunged back, hungrily crashing against her barrier. They sneered, slick and vile. "You think your love can save you?" "I have to believe," she whispered fervently, trying to transform her fear into strength, grasping for the warmth of their bond. But the ground pulsated beneath her, a living entity. Each tremor whispered darkness, promising safety in submission. Lily's small face twisted in anguish, her brave little heart threatened by the shadows. "Mommy, don't leave us." Each word sliced through Sarah like blade, fueling an anger too intense to contain. The primal urge to protect her children ignited within her. "Not today," she bellowed, defiance flowing like lava, fierce and unstoppable. She surged forward, determination carving a path through despair. Her hold tightened around Jacob and Lily, pulling them closer to her heart. "Fight with me." They responded, their young hands squeezing back, their love acting as an anchor in the tempestuous storm. The light flared again, brighter this time, illuminating the shadows that leered in intimidation, but not before they lunged forward, almost tasting her fear. "Join us, Sarah." The grotesque figure hissed, its dozen eyes glinting in cruel mockery. "No one can escape us." It lunged, a mass of darkness and hatred, ready to swallow her whole. With pure instinct, Sarah stepped forward, ready to clash with the nightmare. Just as the shadows advanced, she shouted into the void, "I choose to fight. I choose my family." The surge erupted, an explosion of light that momentarily blinded her. She felt the tremors of the ground lessen, she could barely breathe, flooded by a rush of hope for the first time since the shadow's arrival. Would the light hold? But just then, a piercing scream shattered the moment. It was not from her children, but from the very depths of the void itself, revealing layers of agony that reverberated through her bones. Her heart dropped as fear struck again, a deep chasm of panic filling the void left by hope. What was that? She gasped, sickening dread crawling up her spine. The shadows recoiled, thrashing seemingly in pain. "You've awakened it." They shrieked, surging back as if a deeper terror had stirred within their depths. "Awakened what?" She stepped backward instinctively, dragging Jacob and Lily with her as the ground pulsed around them, shifting dangerously. Something colossal within the darkness stirred, a presence far more fearsome than the shadows themselves, adapting, thrumming with rage. In that solid instant, the chilling whisper returned, echoing around her. "You have no idea what you've unleashed." The nostalgia from the shimmering memory faded, replaced by a faceless terror. What had she just brought upon her family? "Mommy, what's happening?" Jacob looked up with fear. And Sarah's breath caught as she braced herself. A new horror loomed ahead. How could she battle an unseen monster when the shadows hungering only for her children were still there, too? And before she could respond, the glorious light flickered one last time, an eerie hesitation flickering in her heart, echoing ominously. Was this truly the beginning of the end? The ground shook violently, sending tremors through Sarah's legs. Jacob and Lily clung to her waist, fear streaming through their small bodies like the crack of thunder. She could feel their hearts racing, mimicking the rhythm of her own, a chaotic symphony of dread. "What did I unleash?" The words slipped from her lips barely above a whisper. The darkness around them pulsed, seeming to breathe in sync with Sarah's mounting terror. Every instinct urged her to run, but where would they go? The empty park from her memories felt like a lifetime away, obscured by the gnawing dread of what lay just outside their flickering light. Suddenly, a jagged cry sliced through the air, echoing like shards of glass against concrete. It wasn't human. It didn't belong to any creature she recognized. Panic gripped her heart as the shadows twisted into grotesque shapes, burrowing deeper into the ground, as if reacting to the cry's origin. They were alive, feeding off the fear. "Mommy, I'm scared." Lily whimpered, her grip tightening. The plea was simple yet devastating, twisting inside Sarah like a blade. Wasn't she supposed to keep them safe? Yet here they were, imprisoned in this maelstrom of darkness. I know, baby, I know. Sarah's voice trembled, but she fought to sound strong, to be the leader they needed. We have to stay together. Remember the light? Hold on to me. But the shadows shifted again, teeming like a living organism, eager, anticipating. The air crackled with rancid energy, overwhelming her senses. Just when she thought she could find strength again, the chilling whisper returned, wrapping around her thoughts like a vice. Your children, they are the key, it hissed, sorcery folding into the words, urging her into the depths of despair. Let them go, and release your burden. No! Sarah screamed, her voice breaking. The shadows cackled, joyfully swirling tighter around them, mocking her determination. The light flickered, barely standing against the onslaught, appearing as weak as she felt. The tremor intensified and a howling wind spiraled around them, sending cold gusts that slithered through her clothes. Sarah felt an overwhelming urge to retreat. To abandon the fight. Then she saw a flicker of movement in the darkness, something massive shifting, a being born from nightmares. Its eyes, countless and glowing, were locked on her. Hush now, little ones, it growled from the deeper shadows, an ancient malice curling around its tongue. Mommy doesn't have to hurt any more. Fear coursed through Sarah, as deeply rooted as a buried nail. I want to let you take them. She shouted, pushing against the encroaching darkness, but her voice thinned, fading against the weight of despair clawing at her shoulders. The shadows drew closer, transforming, merging into a figure that loomed larger and larger. Features began to form, twisted, malignant laughter echoing in her mind. It knew her fears, her hidden thoughts. You've brought us here, Sarah. You called out for help, remember? But we're not what you wanted. She clutched her children tighter, feeling their warmth ebbing under the push of darkness. Hope was fading. Just as despair wrapped around her throat, an explosion of light burst from within. Not the radiant light she had summoned, but something different, pure, blinding terror. Time slowed. The laughter halted, replaced by a deafening silence that swallowed the shadows whole. What? Sarah gasped, unable to comprehend the sudden shift. Then a voice, gentle but powerful, whispered within her heart. The only way to save them is to face the truth. Before she could fathom its meaning, the presence from the shadows lunged forward, and she braced herself for the worst. Every corner of her mind screamed for escape, yet the weight of her children clung heavier than ever, and within that fragile moment, she realized sometimes, fighting meant confronting the very darkness you wish to shield your family from. Uncertainty wrapped around her as the world swirled in chaos. Was she strong enough to face the truth? A crack echoed behind her, a new dimension of horror clawing its way into the light. What else had she unleashed? The shadows weren't the only monsters lurking in the darkness. The fear in her heart deepened as she felt the ground shift beneath them once more, eager for ruin. The final moments approached. Could she truly protect her children, when the very light they fought for began to dim? The world twisted, a herald of darkness encroaching upon Sarah's fragile bubble of hope. The shadows pulsed with malice, an ancient rage waking in their depths. The flickering light, once a symbol of safety, bent like a desperate flower beneath the storm, threatening to fail them. Mommy! Jacob's voice pierced through the rising hysteria, a small, trembling plea that hurled Sarah back to reality. Her heart clenched painfully. They had to move. We have to go, now. Her voice was firm, shaking slightly, yet filled with urgency. The air thickened, each breath a struggle. The darkness roared, mocking her resolve. She leaned close to her children, her breaths uneven. Keep hold of my shirt. Don't let go no matter what happens. They squeezed tighter, a lifeline against the terror. With shaky resolve, Sarah pushed forward, dragging her children into the overwhelming void. Each step felt like wading through a thick fog of dread, the shadows whispering lies, promising safety, coaxing her to relinquish them. "Just let them go," the voice slithered back, seductive and chilling. "Only you will suffer, just think of the burden." "No. I want tea," she shouted, her voice echoing into the dark. The shadows recoiled momentarily, and Sarah seized the chance, moving faster. Then the ground beneath them bucked, the earth restless and alive. Fear clawed at her gut, she could almost feel the twisted roots of the shadows reaching for them. Behind, a guttural laughter erupted, vibrating through her bones as if the ground itself was mocking her. Suddenly, a blinding flash ignited the darkness, illuminating a figure that had been lurking just beyond the fringe of sight. Tall, emaciated, with a face devoid of features save for those horrific, glowing eyes boring into her soul. Sarah's breath caught. "What do you want?" she shouted, though panic surged through her. It took a step toward them, and the very air crackled as reality warped. "Only to be free," it crooned, voice like shattered glass. "You wield the key, Sarah. Your children are the price." "No." Jacob shrieked, terror spilling from his lips. The shadows around them trembled as if the darkness itself was laughing at her futile struggle. In a desperate attempt to shield her children, Sarah thrust herself forward, unsure of what she was reaching for, but knowing something had to break. And as she moved, her arms surrounding Jacob and Lily, she felt a surge of determination. The very ground throbbed in response to her will, a pulse underscoring the dread. More laughter, but it ricocheted off the walls of her mind, dizzying and deafening. "You think you can protect them? Your heart betrays you. You cannot run from your fears, Sarah." The shadows surged, rising like black tides. She felt it, the children's grips were slackening, their tiny bodies growing cold against her, a familiar despair reaching from the darkness. "Face the truth." The whisper thundered, eroding her defenses. "You are the darkness." The shadows swirled, tendrils wrapping around her ankles, drawing her down. Panic twisted gut-wrenching knots in her stomach as she felt the weight of their fear, a cold reminder of the truth she had long buried. But then came a flash, a flicker of confrontation, and Sarah's heart raced with clarity. "I am their mother," she cried out, a primal scream rippling through the gloom. "I will not let you take them." As she proclaimed her truth, the figure hesitated, hesitation palpable in the thick air. But was that enough? Could her love shine through this mire of dread? The balance hung precariously as shadow and light fought for dominance. Just then, a piercing howl erupted, sharp and chilling as something else, something more grotesque leapt from the darkness. Red eyes glinted with madness, a single, pointed maw opening wider than possible, inviting unspeakable terror. And in that moment, Sarah froze, the shadows pulled tighter. The truth loomed ahead like a jagged cliff. Would she be able to leap into the unknown and save her children, or would this be the moment they succumbed to darkness forever? The silence stretched, and all three held their breath as the abyss yawned wider around them. What would be revealed? Who would emerge victorious from this clash of light and dark? The answer loomed just out of reach, leaving Sarah breathless and uncertain. The howl echoed, stretching beyond the edges of reality, making the very air vibrate with dread. Sarah's instincts honed in on the threat, an animal awareness igniting her courage. She darted forward, a wild surge propelled by sheer desperation, dragging Jacob and Lily behind her like lifelines pulled from the depths of despair, but the ground erupted beneath her feet, spitting dirt and stones in a violent rattle. A vast chasm opened, borders jagged and glistening with the dread of those who'd fallen before. The whispers morphed into taunts, a cacophony sneering at her futile attempts. "You cannot escape," they hissed, slithering through space, worming into her thoughts. "Mommy, I'm scared." Jacob clung tighter, his voice tremulous. Lily's grip slackened, her little fingers trembling against Sarah's side. They were losing their fight against the darkness, even as Sarah dug deeper into her resolve. "Hold on to me," she bellowed, wrenching them close. Together, they formed a fragile triangle of hope. Every breath felt like a weight dragging her deeper, the shadows coiling maliciously around their ankles, the figure still lurking, talons like sharpened knives had not left. Its eyes glimmered with hunger, an insatiable thirst for sorrow. It stepped forward again, the laughter climbing in its voice, a twisted rendition of joy. You will sacrifice their innocence, Sarah. It's inevitable. Face what lies within you. Shut up. Her voice cracked, echoing her own fear back at her. But the truth gnawed at her heart. The darkness wasn't just out there. No. It was threaded within her, the weight of past failures, doubts, fears. Just as she felt rocks digging into her feet, tearing through her resolve, a flood of memories crashed over her struggles, the suffocating regrets that kept her up at night. No. I won't give in. The yell erupted, fierce and filled with fury. She dug her heels into the ground, finding a brief moment of strength as she began to retreat from the abyss, pulling her children backward along with her, yet the ground quaked again, shaking as though it were a living thing in agony. A horrible shriek rattled around them, a cacophony of dark voices rising. Shadows swelled like tidal waves, crashing against her, the grip tightening unbearably. The weight of her failures, the screams of her past echoed within the swirling darkness, closing in. Your children yearn for freedom too. Who do you think you're protecting? The voice coiled around her sanity, casting doubt into her chest like ice. They'll run from you, driven by the same darkness you fear. No. Jacob's voice trembled as images danced in his innocent mind. Shadowed figures beckoned from the edges of his memories, ghosts of nightmares pulsating just beyond sight. Sarah's heart plummeted. Jacob. She turned to him, meeting his terrified gaze, the weight of the world bearing down on them. In that moment, she realized, she couldn't falter. But what could she do? Time was shattering like glass, each second flying apart into infinite fractures of blackness. The figure stood waiting, the air thickening with an oily dread. Then, a flicker caught Sarah's eye. A faint shimmer like a distant star in the choking gloom. Hope. A glimmer of light pushing up against the murky shadows. Could it be? Her heart raced, time a both slow and anxious spiral. Follow me. She shouted, adrenaline coursing through her. She began running toward that flicker, her pulse pounding a furious rhythm. The shadows shrieked, tendrils lashing out, desperate to bring her back, but she surged ahead, dragging her children into that glimmer of salvation. What if it's a trap? Lily cried, the tremor still in her voice, but something else sparkled in her eyes' resolve. Only one way to find out. Sarah gasped. The flicker grew. Would it embrace them or devour them? As they plunged toward the light, the laughter morphed into a furious roar, a thunder of rage meeting their surge of hope. A battle raged in that moment, shadow against light, terror against survival, mother against darkness. Each step carried them closer, and Sarah's heart thundered with wild hope and wild fear. Only time would tell what awaited them on the other side. But as the darkness closed in, she couldn't shake the feeling that safety was just an illusion. What awaited in that light? Was it freedom or the ultimate betrayal? Reality hung on a knife's edge, and in that moment of desperate flight, the secrets of the darkness lunged forward, waiting to reveal something that would shatter everything they believed. The light flickered as they tore through the darkness, an eager beacon promising hope. But the laughter, oh God, the laughter intensified, echoing around them like a sinister soundtrack to their escape. Each step felt heavier, the shadows growing restless and angry. The ground pulsed underfoot as if it were breathing with malevolence. Not so fast. The figure crooned, stepping closer. Its form undulated, blurring the line between nightmare and reality. Sarah dared not look back, fearing that if she did, she'd find herself engulfed again in that pit of despair. Yet, she felt the weight of those eyes burning into her back, sharp and hungry. They ran, the light growing a little stronger, its warmth reaching out, but the path twisted and warped like a funhouse mirror. Reality itself seemed to betray them, dragging them further into the grip of fear. Jacob's little legs were faltering, his breaths raspy and uneven. "Mommy, please," he whimpered, tears streaming down his face. It pierced through her heart like an arrow. "Just a little more," she cried, forcing strength into her voice, though her own heart trembled. Closer, closer to the light. Lily, brave and fierce, tightened her grip on her brother, dragging him forward even when his body lagged. Sarah felt tears prick her own eyes, but she held them back. Falling apart now could mean losing everything. "What will you do when you reach the light?" The figure mocked, its voice slithering through the air, creating a chill that sunk into her bones. "It doesn't really care for you. It knows the darkness is embedded deep within. And once you step into its glow, it will consume you from the inside out." "No. You're lying," Sarah shouted, trying to drown out the voice that tempted her mind and danced with her doubts. She knew that their survival depended on moving forward and refusing to look back, but the shadows surged, thrashing wildly like a tempest. They seemed to have a will of their own, contorting and evolving into shapes that made her skin crawl. Faces twisted in agony formed in the darkness, anguished screams reaching out to her, fingers clawing for connection. "Mommy! Help!" Jacob's voice crescendoed with terror. He stumbled, catching his foot on the uneven ground, and Sarah felt a gastrointestinal plunge of dread. "Jacob!" She twisted, fear flashing through her. It was a moment dogged by silence, as if the world paused to let the darkness take hold. She lunged and caught him just as he was about to fall, but the shadows didn't relent. They enveloped her, wrapping around Sarah like a suffocating hug. Panic clawed at her mind. "We have to keep moving. Hold on." The light pulsed, desperate and beckoning. It danced away, almost teasing her, pulling back like a tide. Just when it felt like they were about to break into its warm embrace, it disappeared, vanishing as quickly as it appeared, leaving nothing but gray desolation. "No, no." It was there. She screamed, a wild surge of hopelessness crashing over her. And then a new sound, a soft voice lingering in the back of her mind. A familiar tone, once comforting, now twisted by the darkness. "You know what must be done, Sarah." Her heart stopped. It was her mother's voice, dripping with deceptive tenderness. A memory flooded in, one she had buried deep under regret. The needling guilt of unfulfilled promises, of unanswered phone calls. The truth she never wanted to face. "Evil thrives on your regrets," the figure snarled, "and it will seize every opportunity to pull you under." Before Sarah could think, she clutched Jacob and Lily tighter, whispering frantic encouragements. But as shadows leaned in closer, her heart raced with the realization that the true sacrifice might not be just her own. "Face it. You must choose." The pressure was mounting. They were trapped at the intersection of light and dark, the air thick with tension and dread. The figure began to swirl, transforming into a grotesque image of her own fears, each a twisted reflection of her past. What would she give to escape? What would it cost? In that deadly silence, the children's breathing quieted, and Sarah felt a surge of terror unlike any she experienced before. "Run." It was a plea, a chance at survival hanging by a thread. But would fleeing mean abandoning her past? And now, a new sensation bloomed. A flicker of betrayal tugged at her heart as she turned her gaze toward that fading light, unsure if it held salvation or her ultimate doom. What awaited them on the other side? A revelation lay just beyond reach, whispering promises. Could she trust it? Just as she began to rationalize a choice, the ground shook again, a monstrous growl rumbling from deep below. Shadows curled like thick smoke, preparing for one final assault. And amidst the deafening chaos, a familiar face emerged from the darkness, full of knowing and malevolence. The future, once uncertain, hung in the balance, and within that moment, something sinister stirred. Was the darkness truly finished with them, or was this only the beginning of their horrific trial? Sarah's heart thundered as she fought against the tumultuous shadows, dragging Jacob and Lily close. The world churned around them, caught in a relentless storm of terror and despair. The mocking laughter of Mr. Owen twisted into a grotesque symphony, echoing their worst fears back at them. Shadows lunged, biting, scratching, trying to pull them apart, but Sarah held firm, every ounce of strength fueled by love. "Stay with me," she shouted, clenching their little hands tighter. The warmth of her children surged through her, an anchor in the maelstrom. She could feel their fear, a mirrored reflection of her own, but she couldn't let it consume her. "Remember the light. We're almost there." But the ground shifted beneath their feet, a living, breathing entity eager to tear them apart. The dark figure loomed closer, its eyes burning with a hunger that sent chills down her spine. "You can't escape," it hissed, voice seeping into her mind, twisting her doubts into daggers. "You're not strong enough to save them." With every word, the shadows tightened their grip, circling like vultures. Sarah felt despair gnawing at her resolve. What if they were right? What if her past haunted her as a monster, ready to claim them all? She had buried secrets, painful truths. The memories clawed at her, pulling her to their depth. "Mommy, help!" Jacob's small voice broke through, rising above the torment. His eyes shone with unshed tears, innocence bleeding into terror. The sight pierced through the haze of darkness. In that moment, Sarah felt a fraying of her heartstrings, determination swelling against the impending doom. "No, I won't let you take them," she roared, her voice cutting through the thick air. Adrenaline coursed anew as clarity flooded her mind. Love bubbled fierce and relentless within her. She envisioned their safety, their laughter echoing down sun-soaked streets, the joy of fleeting moments together. As if responding to her thoughts, the ground around them rippled with light, flickering vibrantly through the darkness. The shadows hissed, recoiling from the brilliance ignited by her will. With her heart wide open, she focused on the warmth of her children, on their innocence, their laughter a beacon against the encroaching tide. "You will not win," she declared, channeling every ounce of her love into words that surged with power. "We choose the light." And with that proclamation, the shadows wavered. The piercing cries of the figure grew shrill, its form distorting as light surged around them. It was as if her heart had ignited the world, casting aside the grip of primordial fear, stripping the dark of its power. "Hold on!" Sarah cried, lunging forward toward the brilliance ahead. A mist of hope enveloped them, wrapping around her children like a protective cocoon. They didn't relinquish their hold on her, their tiny fingers like lifelines woven into her strength. Together, they charged toward the light, a pure and resplendent brightness that felt like home. As they reached it, a sensation of warmth flooded over them, a soothing balm against their trembling anxiety. The shadows screamed, their voices drowned in fierce light, shattering against the barrier of maternal love and courage. Suddenly, the world exploded into color, each shade embracing them in an unseen embrace. The suffocating darkness dissolved, retreating into echoes, whispers that faded into oblivion. Moments stretched, each heartbeat resonating with newfound freedom and relief. Sarah pulled Jacob and Lily tight against her chest, feeling their warmth, their love, an eternal reminder etched fiercely in her heart. They were safe. She had faced the darkness, the monsters that had lurked not only outside, but within, and emerged victorious. "Mommy, are we free?" Jacob asked softly, his voice filled with awe. "Yes, baby," she replied, brushing her fingers through hair damp with sweat, morning moments lost to fear. "We are free." As they stood in the light, reality settling around them, a warmth lingered in the air, a promise of hope and laughter, the return of innocence once thought lost. The shadows would not reclaim her children, the grip of darkness was finally broken. Taking a deep breath, Sarah squeezed their hands one last time, a gesture cementing the bond they shared. Fear had tried to tear them apart, but love had bound them together, always would. In that moment, she knew her fight was not over. Shadows might lurk at the edges, but they would meet each challenge with light. Together. As they stepped forward, embracing the warmth around them, nothing felt more powerful than the love that had saved them. And somewhere deep in the unseen depths, the dark figure retreated into its own despair, whispering into the void, "You'll return." You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and let us keep our community thriving. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. What a ride that was, right? Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. It's time to show your support. We're all in this together.